hope that everyone got some nourishment and are ready to go again. And I noticed that we did have a comment from hello, Golf Co-Center here. Great information. Could you share the presentation on attachment? Very interested in resources, especially for communication. And then Deb did send a link through the Virginia Marcellus Center for Research and Education in Sensory Disabilities with our Project Leadership Challenge website. And also just to review the recording, I said recoding. It should be recording of the follow-up conference will be available on the website, and then separately you will have the accessible attachments. So anyone that needs that certainly can access them. And so Spindletop, are you ready to go?
I believe so.
Okay, then let's get started. And I will show up the 5 for 5 minutes and 1 for 1 minute in my screen. Now I will let you go ahead and present. We're very excited.
And my camera's been acting up too, so I'm not going to be able to use my camera today. I apologize.
Okay, so how do you want me to let you know? Chat?
I can see, yeah. And I don't know that we'll hit the 20-minute mark exactly, so I may not need it.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, thank you for, I will do chat then. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Holly Burrell is part of our team. She's our CEO. My name's Monica Zock. I'm going to be presenting today. Nikisha Coates is also a member of our team. She's the internal waiver auditor for IDD services. And Erica Turner is part of the team as well, and she is a service coordinator supervisor for the Texas Home Living Program at Spindletop. I'm trying to get it to move. Hold on. Okay, so when we met in February, our group developed a two-pronged approach to changes that we wanted to make in our agency. We first wanted to begin with the discussion of moving towards developing services that provide more community inclusion for the individuals we serve. Our second goal was to develop tools for our supervisory staff that would provide more consistency for supervisors during the training process that takes place after they've been hired or after they've transitioned into that role. We also wanted to identify trainings that would help supervisors develop their skills throughout their time with the agency. So in order to begin the first process of the discussion of inclusion, we thought it would be best to ask our individuals that we serve with IDD, our executive management team, staff and IDD services, and families of the individuals to complete the class survey. I believe Stacy sent out. The survey will serve as our pre-test, post-test for reviewing if the trainings we're having and if the discussions we're having with everyone involved in inclusion has positively impacted people's perspectives. The survey was modified a bit by reducing the number of questions that would be answered by the respondents. We felt that reducing the number of questions in the survey would encourage more participation, and the questions that were removed were identified as not being as relevant to the services that we provide for the individuals we serve. The survey that we sent out was a SurveyMonkey link, and we sent it out on June 4th to all of the staff who work in IDD services and our executive management team. Once the survey was sent out, we asked that our service coordinators and waiver program coordinators assist with contacting the individuals and families to let them know about the survey and to assist them with completing the survey if needed. The survey was open through the 26th of June, and we extracted the data on the 27th for the team to review. 191 people participated in the survey, which included 46 individuals that we serve that have IDD, 88 parents or guardians, 11 direct support professionals, 35 service providers, and 11 administrators. So of the 191 participants, we identified 30% as having 0 to 10 years of experience, 28% had 10 to 20 years of experience, 18% had 20 to 30, and 24% had more than 30 years of experience. And those were likely parents and our executive team that's been here, our directors that have been here for a while. So once the survey results were in and the team had an opportunity to review them, we were surprised to see that people were more informed about inclusion than we expected. But we did notice some bias against it when reading through certain questions. So we've identified 9 questions or topics in the survey that we thought we should focus on when we start discussing inclusion with our staff and families. The first of those 9 statements said that people with IDD can organize and speak for themselves. While the majority agreed with this statement, we noticed that 41% of the respondents disagreed, which we thought was high, and we would like to see go down in the future. The next question showed that 75% of the respondents agreed that people with IDD need someone to plan their activities for them. We thought that this was a bit shocking because our team is aware that people with IDD can and should plan their own activities, and we encourage that through our annual planning with them and throughout the year when working with them. Here, this slide shows that 34% of participants agree that people with IDD cannot exercise control over their lives like other people. We were happy that the majority of the people who responded disagreed with the statement. However, we believe that with training and education about inclusion, the amount of people who disagree can be reduced. And so 71% of the respondents for this question agreed that shelter workshops for people with IDD are essential. This number shocked us a bit, but after reviewing the demographics of the individuals we serve, we noticed that many of the people are at least middle-aged and have received the services in the shelter workshops or our day programs for the majority of their adult life. Their parents are also older or elderly, and so they, over the course of years, have just felt that this is the safest environment for their loved one when they go to work or when they're taking care of household tasks during the day. And this slide also lines up with the belief that shelter workshops are the place for the individuals to go. So 75% of the respondents here agree that most people with IDD prefer to work in sheltered settings that is more sensitive to their needs. And the results for this statement also stood out. 48% of the respondents here disagree that the opinion of a person with IDD should carry more weight than those of family members and professionals and the decisions that affect them. We believe this number is high, and the opinion of the people we serve should be our priority when serving them. We also felt that the percentage of respondents who agree that people with IDD should live in a shelter facility because of the dangers of life in the community was high. 43% of the respondents agreed with this statement, and we hope that this number will decrease after more information about inclusion is provided to the individuals we serve, as well as staff and their families. This one stood out as well because 77% of the respondents believe that without some control and supervision, people with IDD could get into real trouble in the community. And when we were looking at this question, I remember during Lynn Siegel's training that she was speaking about the safety of individuals in the community who don't live in congregate settings. is often better than those who do live in congregate settings, because more people are able to watch out for them and see them. So we're hoping that training would impact this result as well. And finally, the last question that we identified as concerning was that 42% of our respondents disagreed that the rights of people with IDD are more important than professional concerns about their problems. And so we want to address these concerns. We started by setting up a training with Lynn Siegel, and she actually came yesterday and the day before and provided training to our staff, supervisors, directors, some direct care staff. She also spoke with family members and others in our community, as well as our executive management team. So while we plan to continue to focus on the inclusion portion of our challenge, we also plan to continue working on increasing consistency and supervision among departments by increasing accountability and updating job descriptions that include the same supervisory tasks for all supervisors across the agency. And we'd also like to identify a pool of candidates for supervisory positions within the agency, so we can promote from within. So in order to improve the training that new supervisors receive when they enter their supervisory role, we have worked to create a supervisory toolkit for when people are onboarded, when the new supervisors come in, and then we've also developed kits for the supervisors that are currently in the agency. The toolkit includes documents that are pertinent to all supervisors, such as onboarding information. We included our information services access request and the PowerPoint presentation that we have for the recruitment and onboarding presentation. We've also included policies and procedures that all supervisors need to be familiar with and be able to pass the information along to the people they provide oversight for. We've also included the unit orientation document, all of the disciplinary action forms. So we've included the verbal coaching, written reprimand, and request for terminations. And each unit can also add information to the supervisor toolkit that are unit specific or department specific. So in IDD provider services, we've created PowerPoint presentations to train supervisors coming in to their role. We've included printouts of those presentations in our supervisory toolkit, as well as the policies and procedures that are specific to IDD provider services. And we've also included some interview questions that we've used for various positions within the department. We've also worked to develop a list of resources for training opportunities. Our agency uses the Relia system for our initial and annual trainings, but there's also a number of trainings that we've identified that would be beneficial for our supervisors. Our chief HR officer, along with other HR staff, have identified supervisor trainings in Relia that new supervisors must complete within their first year. And then they've identified some of those trainings that supervisors will take annually as refreshers. Holly's also been sending out trainings available through the Texas Risk Management Fund to the supervisors at the agency that are beneficial. And recently those trainings have been directed towards challenges that supervisors are facing due to the pandemic. So we've been attending trainings about coaching and accountability, working from home and how to manage yourself in your workspace. There's ethic trainings that are available, and there was a training on interviewing and onboarding virtually. We're also working to develop a video library that includes recorded trainings that have been provided by our HR chief officer and other staff on various topics, so that we can reference those if we have questions in the future. Holly and members of the executive management team are or have been working on revisions to supervisory job descriptions. They've developed a new structure for them, and there's a section that includes supervisory tasks and that will be used across the agency for supervisor roles. The updated job descriptions will provide more consistency and supervisors knowing the expectations for them.
4 minutes left.
We also wanted to share some of the supervision and leadership behaviors that were included. So all supervisors will be responsible for conducting job evaluations for assigned staff and should provide valuable and meaningful feedback. They will also be responsible for scheduling trainings for their staff and providing opportunities for professional development. Supervisors will also be responsible for ensuring that staff are punctual and that their time is monitored for accuracy. They're expected to be accessible to their assigned staff and should keep staff informed of changes not only within the departments, but within the agency as a whole. Supervisors are also expected to apply the performance improvement process, and we require them to use the +1 approach when meeting with staff to review those. Okay. So we've held quite a few trainings for supervisors in IDD provider services. We've had a lot, well, not a lot of extra time. We've had some extra time to meet with supervisors to discuss the Texas Administrative Code, the billing guidelines, and other pertinent information related to their jobs, because we're not having day-hab services, so we have that availability to train them during this pandemic. And we've also completed departmental PowerPoint presentations regarding process and procedures for job-specific positions. Some of the trainings we provided have been the IDD person-directed planning process. We've reviewed how people should be referred for crisis services. We've reviewed specialized training process, on-call information for nurses on call and supervisors, and the trust fund process for our individuals. And like I said, we recently had the training with Lynn Siegel. She came yesterday. She's amazing. And we're going to be sending out the post-test class survey in the next couple of days to get feedback regarding her presentation and to see if any opinions or perceptions of exclusion have changed. That's it.
Kathy, turn it over to you. And any questions or from the audience as well. Kathy, we can't hear you. You need to unmute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Monica, great job. Spindletop Center, nice leadership challenge. I like your 2 goals, increasing inclusion, and of course, always tools for frontline supervisors are essential to this kind of work that we do. I'd like to give you some positive comments about your survey. It was thoroughly inclusive, which is great. It was comprehensive, and it will provide you with good baseline information. I was a little surprised that only 11 direct support professionals completed. Do you know why?
No, we're not sure. We sent them out to everybody, so we don't know if some people answered under service provider or we're not sure.
Okay, that would be a question I'd probably take a look at. Could they not access a computer to do SurveyMonkey, or was there some other reason, or did they go into a different category? And I assume you're going to do it again.
Yes.
The other thing I would suggest is, I too was surprised by some of the responses to the data, to the questions. What you might want to do is it might skew your pre and post survey data, but you might want to utilize your partners here with you today from the university. Partners at the university have incredible expertise in survey design. Some of your questions, in my opinion, are leading questions that are easy to correct, that may have given you a bit of skewed responses if you had worded the question differently. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so like people with IDD need someone to plan their activities for them. You could easily reword that and it would be, I think, a little cleaner in terms of your response. I'd probably suggest that you have an employment question to balance the shelter workshop question, because you might be surprised. But like I said, survey design, the university, they're your friends, they're your partners. Now, I get it, increasing consistency among departments. I would say increase consistency among departments as it relates to policy implementation. But then I'd add another dot point to increase creativity across departments to look for new ways of doing business. I like that you're promoting from within. That's excellent. Now I could just, I just got to review your PowerPoint and I'm just meeting you, but in your supervisory toolkit in slide 15, good first start. But I'm just wondering why disciplinary action is number one. That would should be something that discipline should be consistent, but for frontline supervisors, there's so many other things that we want them to focus on, like staff retention, communication, enhancing quality of services, and disciplinary is important, but I wouldn't list it first. The other thing I would do is I never recreate the wheel. So there's a number of frontline supervisory tools out there, and one that you might want to look at, not necessarily to buy or to use, but to get some ideas, is the College of Direct Support's Frontline Supervisor Training at the University of Minnesota. It's pretty well done, and it might give you some additional ideas to supplement what you're doing. Let's see. I'm glad to hear that you're focusing on performance evals. They're so important. They're so important before the first 30 days is up. They're so important quarterly, and then they're, of course, important annually. Do you do 360 reviews with any of your staff?
This is Holly. I'm going to jump in and just, we started doing, no, I wouldn't say it's a full 360 review, but we do have employees reviewing themselves against their work products and their standards. And so we have the evaluator, the supervisor doing the evaluation. We have the employee doing their own evaluation of themselves, and then they get together and talk about it. We also modified our evaluations to remove all scoring elements, to try and get away from, debating, is this a 2.1 or a 2.2 kind of issues.
Yeah, great.
We did that.
It sounds like you're on the right page then.
Yeah, about 6 months ago we made that change, and it's been really good, and it's made for some interesting and I think more helpful performance evaluation conversations.
And the agencies that I talk to who feel best about their evaluations have separated the actual performance review and the narrative, as you did, from a points thing, but also separating it from what or do you get a salary increase. Because that's a very separate meeting, a separate time, so that it's a meaningful discussion. So good for you. On slide 19, you may do this, but it wasn't clear, so I just made a note where you said the supervisor is accessible to assigned staff. I would just encourage you to think about scheduling and whether you're having your frontline supervisors on a regular basis, as well as your entire management team, to work some evenings and some weekends as part of their regular schedule, because that's when a lot of things really happen. Do you do that?
Yes.
Yes.
all of our supervisory staff is available on evening and weekends.
Well,
It's not a routine thing, but when there are issues and they need to be reached, they're available.
yeah, and so I would just encourage you to go to the next step and look at, available on call is very different than clinical staff and management staff having a regular or an intermittent evening hour once a week and some weekend time at least once a month where they're physically on site, providing opportunities for positive interaction and learning, because so much of the time that our direct care staff are working is when no clinical or management staff are available.
Yeah, good point.
Okay, thank you. And I like your 3-day training. The curriculum looked good. It's a nice start. And I think the other thing I might add is measurement of success, measurement of outcomes. How do we, as an organization, measure that we're making a difference in the lives of people? Are you doing that?
We have our annual surveys that we send out in our HCS and Texas Home Living programs that ask questions in regard to their satisfaction with surveys. And we also have monthly calls that we make to families and individuals to ensure that they're happy with the services they receive. So we make sure to contact people who receive employment services, DAHAB, residential services. So we try to reach out to families in each service area monthly to make sure that they're satisfied.
Okay, and then I would just encourage you in your supervisory training that you add a component on quality management and how are we measuring that we're making a difference. And because that's what we're all about. But otherwise, I think it's a great first start. I think you guys have, considering COVID, you have really launched and moved forward, and thank you for sharing. Are there questions?
With no questions or comments, Summerhouse, are you ready?
Yes, we're ready. As ready as we're going to be.
Oh, we're looking forward to it. You have much to tell us about. So there you go. I'll do what, Summerhouse, what will be the best way to let you know? Through chat or camera? You have 5 minutes left. What is the best way?
Camera, please.
Okay, will do. So let's start.
A little background of Summerhouse. In 2012, our founder, Donna Frugier, set out on a journey to change the trajectory of meaningful opportunities for young adults with IDD in Houston. Donna established an evidence-based education program and created a curriculum that encompassed necessary life skills, social and emotional skills, functional academics, and vocational training and supports. In 2018, we had 16 individuals in the program, which was past capacity for our little bungalow. With an extensive waiting list for services, we decided to expand. We moved into our campus in August 2019 and quickly grew it. As of today, we have 26 members attending. So as we talked through the changes with the rest of the staff and the board, we realized that our vision and mission statements didn't align with what we learned at the conference. They weren't horrible, but we knew they could be better. The old vision was adults with intellectual disabilities and their families will be empowered to challenge the way it's always been done. And our new vision is creating opportunities for adults with IDD to belong and positively impact the greater Houston community. Our old mission was, we exist to create personal growth opportunities for young adults with intellectual disabilities and/or autism who need a place to belong. And now our mission is, Summerhouse supports adults with IDD, their families, and our community through employment, volunteerism, and partnership to foster a culture of belonging, choice, and respect. And then our team members, there's Joanna Burnett, our Assistant Executive Director, Angie Crutchfield is our Program Director, Bria Long, Program Associate, and myself, Program Associate. And we had help from our wonderful consultant, Jennifer Eccles, who helped us a lot.
So the purpose of our project, the thing we really wanted to tackle was inclusion and belonging. We realized that we were an integrated program, but we wanted to make a move to become a fully inclusive program. We're out in the community, but we weren't necessarily seen as equal to everyone in the community. We are a group, a part of the community, not necessarily individuals in the community. We wanted to focus on person-centered planning and self-determination, to increase the level of choice each individual has throughout the day, to focus on what each member wants and needs. We were offering choices, but from a limited set of options. These options are the ones that fit into the same weekly schedules. It was easier to fill the schedule and fill those slots accordingly. Members may have some say in what they prefer, but at the end of the day, we put them where there was a seat in the van or where space allowed. It became very important for us to change the environment and not the person. Despite progression in public perception, there's still some stigma, especially here in Texas, of what people with disabilities can and cannot do. There should be no limit set on what people with disabilities can achieve. The key is to find the support they need in order to achieve these things. We also set out to focus on employment first. Previously, members were going through training at volunteer sites before we would even look or consider them for a job. We were preparing members with the work readiness model. We had an underlying belief that members need to prepare to be ready for work through vocational training or volunteering. Here's a graph of some of the progress that we made with staff. We broke this down into 2 different categories. So first we'll discuss staff, and then we'll discuss the progress made with members. So in April, when all of the COVID stuff was happening, we presented the best practices we learned at the training to all of our staff via a Zoom conference and presented the changes we wanted to implement in our program. Staff seemed a bit overwhelmed at first, but definitely on board with the why behind making these changes. We also implemented a survey among our staff that we took in Lubbock. It measures our organization's practices against our priorities for 5 major categories. You can see these that are shown on the slide. For the survey, we mostly focused on category 1 and 2, measuring principles of autonomy among our members and the amount of community engagement. You'll see there's a pretty big difference between our priorities in these categories and our practices. Even more of a difference between the 2 compared to other categories. This is a pretty accurate description of how we felt after the training in Lubbock. We definitely had room to grow in increasing member autonomy, decision-making, and increasing meaningful community employment and engagement. With time, we expect to see a lessening of the gap between our priorities and practices and an overall increase in both. So we created an interest survey broken down into 10 categories, and this is all about our progress made with members. So all members have taken this interest inventory. We made sure to include visuals for those that had the learning style that would best benefit that for preferred leisure activities. So the 10 categories we've identified include outdoors, exercise, animals, entertainment, sports, cosmetology, food and cooking, as well as art. Currently, we've established 5 groups based on the results of this interest inventory. These groups are intended to pair members with similar interests together. They continue to change as members develop interests, as well as identifying interests they don't wish to pursue any longer. We will plan on having each member fill out the interest inventory at least once per year, more if necessary, to determine interest level, as well as to help develop new interests. We look forward to developing this further based on the needs and wants of the members. An increase in choice. So we did offer some choice before. Members would choose which restaurants they would like to order from and what they would like to order. They now plan out their activities for the week. Each group has begun to plan their own schedule, and we have been focusing on members actively making more choices. Members will choose at least 1 fitness activity per week, a new restaurant or food that they want to try, a volunteer site. Obviously, we don't have any choices in this due to COVID right now, but hopefully in the future we will have more. 1 interest-related activity, 1 new activity, something they haven't tried before, and something they would like to learn about. It could be cultural diversity to health and fitness. Currently, our only volunteer site is Heights Food Pantry, and we've begun to look for other volunteer sites that meet our safety standards or are outdoors. More progress made with members includes an increase in person-centered planning. Members now participate in goal development and have a monthly meeting with staff of their choice. Previously, goals were established based on what staff determined was needed vocationally and socially. Members didn't have any say in this and often weren't even aware of what those goals were. They now choose the meeting time, the agenda, what they want to discuss. They go over their individualized life plan, current goals, new goals, discuss anything they may want to change, add, or delete, anything they want to improve on, ideas, questions they may have, and anything they think we're not doing that they may want to do.
So some of our challenges and solutions we had when we were completing our member interest survey with members once we returned from COVID, we had some difficulty with members identifying yes versus no. And we've seen this difficulty in the past, and we knew it could skew the results of this survey. And there was also some members that did not understand or have not yet explored some of the interest. We've also seen that change has been tough for staff. Staff now have to plan a weekly schedule, which they were not used to before. Before the change, it was a pretty set and standard schedule for all staff and members. This change brought a lot of freedom, but with that freedom came more responsibility to create intentional yet entertaining planning that includes explorations of interest, vocational training, exercise, and improvements on goals. Staff now have set planning times, usually on Fridays, that they complete the planning with members, and we have created tools for them to complete this as well. Another challenge has been identifying when members should make a choice. So some staff have had difficulty understanding the difference between when everything can be a choice and when we have to guide our members to make a choice out of certain set of choices. So this can be seen when we have a set of volunteer sites or exercise activities to choose from rather than asking them if they want to volunteer or if they want to exercise, so that we help them to continue on the intentional path that supports the mission of our organization. We also have seen a lack of community opportunities due to COVID. I think we all have experienced this. So as Angie said, we are currently volunteering only at the food pantry, and as of yesterday, we have returned to the Houston Food Bank. We are exploring different types of interests that is still safe for our members, including outdoor activities, parks, art, job skills assessments, and more. And we also have a variation in our groups and how determining the solutions can be difficult. So it's majority rules or one person makes the choice. We still don't really have a clear answer to this question, and it definitely differs in different choices or in different situations. We also have a lack of separate rooms at our current location. We have a very big building, but it is pretty open. And as we have tried to go to small groups, we definitely have seen that this has been hard to accommodate our needs. So we've started to utilize space outside of Summer House, outdoors, parks, and obviously once we are starting to go back into the community, that will definitely help with this. Transportation has been an ongoing difficulty for us. We're currently utilizing Harris County Rides, which is a program sponsored by the city that supports those with disabilities. It utilizes yellow cab taxi services and covers half the cost. And then we are responsible for covering the other half of the cost when it's transporting one of our members that is out at a job site and coming back to Summer House for our program. We also have had difficulty with community employment opportunities due to COVID. and finding them safe jobs in the community has become more difficult, but a lot of our members that were employed before COVID have started to return to work slowly and safely. And we recently have had a few clients that have new employer opportunities at Enterprise and FedEx. And virtual education is definitely a difficulty, I think, for all of us, including our members. So we've been utilizing job coaches to assist with virtual trainings for the employees. And another big difficulty for us is our on-site enterprise, which is Shred for Independence. We have, after the conference, we reflected back and we realized it's not inclusive. Not all of our members that work there are paid. And, but we do know that it is a beneficial site for new members to complete assessment and to begin their volunteer process. Our consultant has provided us with different options for this, and tomorrow we do have a staff development day, which is, this will be our main focus.
Okay, our lessons learned. The biggest lesson we learned is change is hard for everyone. This includes staff, the board, our members, and their parents. Unpredictability and COVID restrictions go hand in hand. We learned that there are things that we cannot control, and we have to be able to adapt as a program to the situation. Last but not least, we learned that if the change is something you really value, it can become a possibility if you make it a priority.
Alrighty, so next steps for us. First, we definitely like to continue growing our program and adding new members while continuing to practice what we've put in place with our groups and members deciding what they do with their day. Second, we definitely want to prioritize providing ongoing staff support just to navigate through this change and to ensure that we're following principles of person-centered planning and self-determination. Third, we definitely want to increase employment opportunities, not only for our members, but also for outside referrals we get who just need some support with finding a job. Of course, this has been kind of put on hold or at least slowed down because of COVID, but we do now have a dedicated employment staff. We have 2 staff members that are fully dedicated to working on employment to try to increase this. We'd also, of course, want to keep working on developing more community opportunities for our members, like finding more volunteer opportunities, classes, or events, anything to do in the community that members are interested in. And then going hand in hand with that, working on developing natural supports there so that members who might be really interested in that activity could continue to do so with less staff support. Like Bria just said, we definitely want to address Shred for Dependence, which we'll do tomorrow. Essentially, it's a sheltered workshop, and we don't like that. So we have some ideas maybe to change the business model up to make it inclusive, or to pay everyone who works there, or to just kind of do away with it and merge the business with a different shredding business in Houston. And then, so if we have a couple of members who are really interested in shredding professionally, so maybe working with a business to where those members can work at their business instead of on site at Summer House. And that was the wonderful idea from our consultant, Jennifer. And lastly, we'd like to continue with our survey. So we will definitely implement a second survey with staff, the same one that we did a few months back, just to see if our priorities and practices have aligned a bit better. And we also implemented a survey with members just to kind of measure their sense of self-determination. And in the beginning, we saw really high rates of them saying, like, yes, that they make all the choices at Summer House, but that really wasn't the case. So we think that it might have been just them not really knowing what it looked like to really fully make decisions about what they do at Summer House. So we'll be implementing that survey again to see how that has changed. and the overall impact of the leadership training. Overall, we definitely walked away from the training in Lubbock with knowledge on best practices in our field. And then it's been really impactful to compare those to what our practices are at Summer House, and then deciding what we can do to address that gap. A second thing that we walked away with was that this was a really great team building experience for us to work together on some of these tough issues and then be able to come back to Summer House as a unified voice to try to make some changes. We're definitely equipped with more knowledge and resources and tools to make the changes that we wanted to make through this group, through our consultant, and definitely with the help of the folks at the National Leadership Consortium. And fourth, since the training, we've just noticed that we're constantly checking ourselves and reflecting back on how we provide services and how those align with these new values that we really want to implement at Summer House. And lastly, we now have a strong network of people in our field in Texas and elsewhere that we can reach out to for support. And this has been a really wonderful experience for us, and we're grateful to have been a part of it. I think that's it.
Thank you very much. Summer House. Kathy?
Okay, thank you, Summer House. Very nice to hear from you. I like your mission a lot. Excellent job. Amazing focus for your project. I'd like to hear about your shift, person-centered planning, shifting from groupthink to individualized supports, which is such an important thing, especially under the new home community-based waiver regulations. For employment first, you might want to take a look at what Oregon is doing in particular. Their settlement agreement progress notes, their biannual report on employment might have some information that is available, of course, for free on their website about some things you might want to think about trying. In terms of your progress, creating buy-in presentation for staff, excellent feedback loop. You know, you guys got to go, you got to experience this amazing national leadership training, but how nice then that you were able to bring it back and share it with your staff and then implement the staff survey. I like that you created an interest survey. Well done. I would encourage you to make sure that you conduct the survey with individuals at least annually. To solicit member input, there's a couple things you might want to take a look at. In the state of Oregon, on their website, they have a discovery tool, which they're having providers use to find out what kinds of things people are interested in and what they want to do. They've had lots of national experts help them design this discovery tool. It's already been revised 3 times. I think the latest iteration is pretty well done, so it might be something for you all to take a look at in terms of additional probe questions that you might ask as people go forward. The other is they've designed a career development plan. So in addition to an ISP, they have a supplemental career development plan. And so some of those probe questions might help you as well. You talked about the importance of switching from yes/no questions. Excellent. Really, we need to get away from the yes or no.
I don't think we can hear you, Kathy.
We might have lost her. I'm not sure.
Oh, sorry. I got kicked off. I'm back.
I think the last thing we heard was us moving away from yes/no questions.
Okay. If you go to, I think it's www, I don't know, Council on Quality and Leadership, just Google it. They have something called a POM manual, a Personal Outcome Measures manual. I think it's still only $25. It's an excellent resource for finding ideas for open-ended questions to ask members or people with disabilities. It's a really good resource to help you shift your thinking away from yes, no questions to moving toward open-ended questions in language that people will understand. I loved your discussion on challenges and solutions, identifying when choices should be made. Many state people first chapters, as well as DD councils, have funded numerous tools that are visual, lots of good pictures, not graphics, with rights come responsibilities when making informed choices. And so as you move on your journey of quality, you might want to look at some of those tools that are available, because you're right. You know, do I want to go to I don't know ball games. Houston Oilers, right? They must play something. I don't know, football or something, or basketball. I don't know. But anyway, you know what I'm talking about. Do you want to go to such a game? Well, yeah. Well, but can you afford it? And if you can buy a ticket like that, can you afford your groceries? So with rights come responsibility. So there's many numbers of tools out there for self-advocates, and I would look at People First and DD councils. Thank you for looking at separate rooms outside of your key location. Community sites are often used when moving toward inclusion. Libraries, park district, churches, even City Hall will give you free space. I know COVID, they won't right now, but you know, we're going to be out of COVID someday. Shred for Independence, the only idea I have there is thank you for looking at the fact that some people are not getting paid. I get it for evaluation, that might be okay, but you got to look at the Department of Labor. But I would also suggest you've got an expert, talk to her. Voc Rehab, vocational rehabilitation, will help you shift that to member-owned or members-owned, co-owned business, especially with youth in transition. And the Voc Rehab has to now support people with IDD, and they have additional funds to target young adults and youth transitioning from school. And so they may be able to help you get some funding to help launch member-owned businesses. And the last thing I would just say is as you're doing surveys with the people you support, simply asking the probe questions about what they want and what they need is a process that lets them begin to identify their preferences and help them prepare for future informed choices. So I think you're well on your way. I think you've got a good expert, and I congratulate you on the success you've made so far.
Thank you very much.
At this point, we're running a little bit ahead of time, which is wonderful. And I just want to ask, are there any questions or comments from the group about any of the presentations or any of the resources that Kathy has talked about? She really has provided a large amount of information in a very short period of time, 5 to 10 minutes. I don't know about you, but I think a 5-minute break would be a good idea. And then we'll come back. Kathy, would you be willing to present about 11:45?
Yeah, and I'll try to get my slides up.
Do you need a few more minutes?
No, 5's good. I'm good.
Okay, 11:45-ish. If it goes to 11:47, I think that's okay. And at that point, Dr. Carter will be taking over. And so take a 5-7-minute break, something to drink, a little bit of nourishment, whatever you need to do, stand up, shake, whatever you need to do. See you in a bit. Try again.
Huh. I've got it up, so I don't know what to do.
Neil, can you help out?
I can certainly try. Kathy, at the bottom of your Zoom window, you should see a button for share screen. You might have to make the Zoom window bigger.
Okay, so wait, let me see. I see reactions, record, share screen. Got it. Okay, so share. Okay. And now I've lost my screen. So wait, let's see.
Well, we can see your screen, so we're making progress.
Yeah. Can somebody else put it up?
Sure. Well, actually, I don't know if I have those slides. Dr. Griffin Shirley, do you have those slides?
Pam Lindell does. And oh, I've lost everything.
Are we up?
Yeah.
Let's see.
We do. Yeah.
Is that good?
Excellent. Everything looks good on this end.
All righty. Thank you so much. So and let me set my timer. I'm gonna, okay, timer started. Organizational change, changing vision into action. Well, first, let me start by thanking each of you organizations for committing to make organizational change. It's a hard enough thing to do in a typical business day, and then to do it in the middle of COVID, in the biggest world pandemic we've seen in over 100 years. It's tough. So congratulations to each team for moving forward. Change is difficult, but as we know, it's important to do change. But I'll tell you, as somebody who has done organizational change professionally for more than 40 years, it's easier to be the changer than the changee. It's much easier to say, well, we've revised all these policies and here you go, I've changed them, implement them, use them, sign off on them, as opposed to, well, I'm the direct care staff and I'm now supposed to do what with who? And so we have to remember that when we are going to implement organizational change, we need to have a committee of stakeholders so that as we go forward, we get the perspective of all kinds of different people as to how, from their perspective, this change is going to impact people. It doesn't mean you don't move forward. It doesn't mean they can stop it. It just means that you get their input about, did you think about this? Did you think about that? As you go forward, let's think about those things, okay? Success factors. When you are making organizational change, it's so important to stay focused on the mission of your organization. You wonder, why do I have this mission? Why do I have guiding principles? You have them so that when you're making organizational change, you have a benchmark to look back to and say, how is this going to impact the individuals that we support? And how is it, or is it not, in line with our mission? In fact, whenever I was the CEO at board meetings, my board members not only had a nameplate that told everybody who the heck they were, but on the back of the nameplate was the mission of the organization. So then when, as a board, they made a decision, a policy decision, and they took a vote, we asked them to first make sure that the vote was in line with the mission. Same thing with executive staff. have it on the back of the placard. And in fact, we ended up putting the mission, painting it on the wall of our board meeting room in our executive room. So when you do organizational change, what usually happens? This is not just DD, this is any organizational change. Rates of acceptance will vary by knowledge that your stakeholders have of what is happening. So generally, when you announce the change, 10 to 20% are going to be in favor. They're going to be your cheerleaders. Yes, great, I've been waiting for this forever. 60 to 80% are going to be on the fence. And 10 to 20% are going to be opposed no matter what the change is, because change is difficult for people. And the problem we have had historically in the field of intellectual and developmental disabilities is we focus on the 10 to 20% who will be opposed, rather than the 60 to 80% who are on the fence. And that's where you should focus your energies and your time. Giving information to those stakeholders so that they can move from, I'm not sure, to joining those who are supporting you as you do organizational change. The 10 to 20% who are opposed, they may always be opposed. Some of them may shift to the middle, some may shift to the top. In my case, when I did organizational change as a provider organization, the 10% who were dug in, we are not going to close the shelter workshop, we are not going to move to a more inclusive service, they went to go work at prisons. They went to work for corrections, and that's a better place for them, and we got some new staff. What are some normal reactions to organizational change? Well, I hope it's not real. I can outlast these people. They'll be dead and gone, or they'll quit, and then we can go back to the old ways of doing it. Or, what's the impact on me? I have lots of questions. Are you going to give me some time to be able to ask my questions so that I better understand the change and its impact? I might fight it. I might fight it passively. I might fight it aggressively. Prove it to me. Prove to me that inclusion is better. No. Okay, I'm getting lost again. I'm getting dumped off. Dave, the internet is messing up. Am I back?
We can see your screen. You
But-
navigate around.
But you can't hear me?
No, we can hear you as well.
Okay, you know what? I'm going to go without the screen if you can hear me now.
Kathy, I can share my screen.
You can what?
I can share my screen.
Oh, that'd be lovely, because for whatever reason, I lost you. Okay, so organizational change, we're going to see resistance. It could come in many different forms. Really, don't take it personally. I'm on slide 6. Some people may never accept the change. Focus on the people who really have good questions, who really want to learn and know what's going to happen. And resistance is not necessarily bad. That's why I think a good committee of different stakeholders to help you through this will say, whoa, this is a thing you didn't consider, or I'm a resistance to this because you didn't think this through thoroughly. And that's okay. That helps us learn. Let's go to the next change. So organizational change, we sometimes have fear of losing our job. What is this change going to mean to me, this shift? Our passion, our friends, our culture, our connection, our history. And so we have to bring people along. Next slide. Why does organizational change fail? Well, sometimes there are misunderstandings. And so we have to make sure, as the one group is focusing on communication is so essential, is so important. Make sure that people have an opportunity for feedback loops so that they can listen and learn and get clarification. There will be power plays. What do you mean you want to shift to employment? What's that going to do to my job? What do you mean you're going to shift how we do this recycling business? What is that going to do to my job? Have focus groups. Let people exchange and dialogue. If we don't give people any input into the process or outcomes, they're going to be resistant. Self-interest generally overrides everything, so let's make sure we understand where people are coming from and help them move to a different place. And of course, the biggest problem with organizational change is just fear of the unknown. That's why people are like, yeah, I'm not sure I like this change, okay? Because I'm comfortable. So how do we make people feel more comfortable? Communication guidelines, we need champions. So in that 10 to 20% that are with you, we need to empower those champions to have more information. We have to empower self-advocates, frontline supervisors, board members, all kinds of people, because they're not always going to come to the top to ask their questions. So you have to make sure that a variety of people have answers to these questions. As much as possible, I know with COVID it's not, but talk to people in person, give them a format so that they can chat. Always tell the truth. If you're not sure about something, be honest. Say, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if this is going to work. I'm not sure of everything, but we are sure that it's in line with our vision. It's in line with our guiding principles. And our mission says this is what we should do. And it's also national best practice. Let people express their feelings. I'm feeling scared. I'm feeling unknown. I'm feeling this, that, and the other. Let them tell you how they're feeling and discuss the real issues. Okay? Action plan. Some of you have done a remarkable job. Describe the change completely. Indicate what is the best outcome that you're hoping for. Put together a timetable, even if you have to change it. And have measurements that tell us how will we recognize success when we see it. Albert Einstein once said, if I had an hour to save the world, I'd spend 55 minutes defining the problem. A very important thing to do. What's the problem? What's the solution? And how are we going to get there? Focus groups. A number of you said that you have done focus groups, or you've called them town halls. Good for you. Great for you. I'm so happy that you're doing that. But when you do the focus groups, make sure that you include all your stakeholders. Individuals with disabilities, families, your board, staff at all levels, community level members, and funders. And in fact, when I was the CEO of a provider, what we did is we started first having separate focus groups. It didn't work. We did a much better job having focus groups with a few people from each of these groups, because then they helped be champions and helped us learn. Outcomes should drive us, always. Outcomes should be defined by the individuals. What's important to me? What do I want in my plan? You're getting funding to provide services. What is the outcome that I want to work on? And when we ask self-advocates what outcome is most important to them, they usually have an outcome related to home, where they live, who they live with, what happens in their home. They have an outcome related to work. I want a job. I want to volunteer. I want to do something meaningful. Generally, they have an outcome related to friends. I want to see my friends more. I want to make more friends. I want to have a goal about being with my friends, separate from COVID. Money. I want to make more money. I want to have more money. I want to get more money. How do I get money? I need a job. And so there you go. And then maybe safety. I worked with one organization, And they were learning to become a learning organization as they were doing organizational change. And what they discovered is they kept track pre and post what outcomes people said were important to them. And then after they made this big organizational change. So for this organization, it was a data-driven decision-making on should we close the shelter workshop. It was then decided that the survey of self-advocates, 80% of the people served said, I want a real job with real pay. And so they decided to close the shelter workshop and shift to paid work, volunteer work, and meaningful, inclusive community engagement. And when they looked at the data 3 years later, what they found is that there was a 40% increase in people choosing services once they decided to be an employment first agency. There was a 37% increase of people realizing goals that were important to them. And you all know under the home and community-based waiver regulations, everyone must have at least one goal they care about. Well, if you have a goal you care about, it's more likely also that you're going to realize it. There was a 29% impact in terms of people connected to new natural supports, people on the job, people volunteering, people in the community. There was a 29% impact in terms of people performing new social roles. I'm a volunteer. I'm a more active auntie. I'm a more active sister. I'm a more active brother. I'm a more active neighbor. I now interact with my neighbors. I know who my neighbors are. I bring in my neighbors, my elderly neighbor's garbage for her on garbage day, whatever it might be. There was a 23% impact on people having friends. The research shows us outside of disability for all people, if someone has at least one or two good friends, they are safer. Don't we want people to be safe? But 56% of people with intellectual disabilities interviewed in the United States with an N of over 1,000 interviews, 56% interviewed said they didn't have at least one friend who wasn't a paid staff. We've got to work on that nationally. And there was a 22% increase in using their environments. So, should we study the future? Of course, because nobody really knows what's going to happen. And from barriers comes success. COVID has been a very serious barrier in all of our lives. But from it, many of us have learned new ways of doing business. There's opportunities as well as danger. And the changes that we do need to be constructive. So, are you a learning organization? Well, learning organizations take risk. I think each of you meet that one because you're taking a risk, each of you, to do organizational change. So congratulations. Learning organizations partner with individuals who will challenge them. They just don't fill the room with a bunch of yes men, yes women, yes people. They have people around them that will ask good questions, ask hard questions. They have a stakeholder group guiding the organizational change who will ask data-driven questions about how this is moving, how this is going. Are we even getting closer to the outcomes that we said were important for this organizational change? For every person considered too disabled to work, someone somewhere has figured it out for a person with similar needs. And so, you know, the argument of, oh, she's too disabled to move to the community. Oh, he's too disabled to get a job. She's too disabled to volunteer. But in every state across this great nation and in many, many countries, many people with quite significant disabilities are volunteering, are working, and are living in supported living. If you're a learning organization, every time you improve services for people with severe disabilities has been a movement away from institutions and segregation and a movement toward community and inclusion. And it sounds like everybody is trying really hard to make those steps. And it's not a giant leap. It doesn't happen overnight. And each of us is at a very different point. Learning organizations need leadership to move forward toward building social ties. And so you can't just do it by yourself. That's why you've got this amazing national leadership team of mentors that are helping you. Many of you have engaged consultants to move you along. You've got the university and their amazing expertise to bring you different ideas, different contexts, different links to people who've already gone through what you've already gone through. You don't have to do it by yourself. There are people that will help, people who are glad to help you. So what else do learning organizations do? They relentlessly upgrade their team. Now, does that mean get rid of the whole team and get a new team? No. Maybe they bring a new partner onto their team. I think I heard one team said they just brought in a retention specialist to their team. Great for you. Somebody else said they just brought in a new employment first staff for their team. Good for you. Others of you who have said we have brought in part-time consultants who are upgrading our team and giving us new ideas, new information, new ways of looking at the same problem. Learning organizations use every encounter as an opportunity to evaluate, coach, and build self-confidence. Self-confidence for all the team members, okay? And we make sure that people not only see the vision, they live it, they breathe it, they own it every day, okay? You inspire risk-taking. It's okay to go out on a limb and say, whoa, I'm gonna listen to this stranger, Kathy Fickertero, tell me what she thinks about my plan, and she's never met me, she's never been to my site, all she did was read my PowerPoint. And you don't have to take what I say. It's just a way to get you to think differently, to just go to that next place. Encourage learning by setting the example. If we're living inclusive lives, it's easier to support people with disabilities to live inclusive lives. If we are living, breathing, and exercising the mission, values, and guiding principles, then our staff will do the same. And celebrate success. You know, once a year we get to have our birthday celebrated if we're lucky. And in this field of disabilities, we are really good at pondering problems. We are really good at discussing the fact that there is not enough money ever, okay? But how often do we celebrate success? Every time you have a management meeting, some of you said you're starting it now, celebrate successes. What are the successes of people with disabilities that we should celebrate, either individually or globally? And establish trust with candor. Open that door. Make sure that you as the CEO, the CFO, the COO, or whatever O you are, that you have an open door, that you are honest and forthright, and that it's okay to ask questions. When I was the CEO of many providers, and one in particular, I had a thing that I called lunch with the CEO. And no, it wasn't catered, and no, it wasn't fancy. It was in the boardroom. You brought your brown sack. And if you wanted to ask me a question about legislation, public policy, new initiatives, funding, the budget, whatever, I made myself available for 2 hours once a month for any staff who wanted to take the time and come in and ask questions to get clarifications. What else do learning organizations do? They laugh. They have a little bit of fun. It's important, okay? They have positive energy and optimism, and I heard that in each of your presentations. I heard that you were proud, I heard that you were excited, and I heard that you had positive energy. You also have the courage to make unpopular decisions and gut calls, because you're in charge. You probe, you ask questions, you push with a lot of curiosity. What if we tried this? Has anybody tried that? Hey, oh, there's somebody in Rotary who knows that? Oh, I think I'll go talk to him or her. Oh, there's another agency in another part of the state, or there's an agency in Rhode Island or an agency in Arizona. Well, don't go to Arizona right now because they've got COVID bad. But you might call them up, or you might Zoom them, and you might find out what the heck they've got. And make sure that all questions are answered with action. Either we're doing it, we're not doing it, thank you for the idea, at this time we can't. There's a book I like, it's called, back up one I think, The Seat of the Soul. Oh no, okay, no, go ahead, I'll just follow you. Go to the next one. So where did we used to be? You know, we've come a long way. Okay. In my state, we had a state facility called Lincoln State School, and then it became the Lincoln Developmental Center, and then it closed. But before it closed, when anybody left and went to the community, they were left with a set of rules. And I was reviewing somebody's file one day, and I found these rules. If you leave the Lincoln State School and you go to the community, you must notify us if you change your residence. Why? You may never drive a car. You may never drink alcohol. People with IDD can drink alcohol if there isn't a medical reason why they can't, and they're responsible. You can't ever get married, and my favorite, don't ever buy anything on layaway. I don't know who made up these rules, but these rules followed people in their charts. So we have to be careful what we put in paper. Next slide. These are unprecedented opportunities. We live in a time where people are living beyond 100 years old. People with disabilities who we thought would only live with Down syndrome to be 20, 30, 40 years old are living to be 70 years old. Other than COVID, and we're working on it, we have conquered disease. I mean, we now have less than, I believe it's less than 5% of the world population with a risk at polio. We hopefully will have a cure, or if not a cure, a vaccine for COVID by the spring of next year. And there's gold among the gray. There are a lot of us who are elderly, myself included, who still have a contribution to make, who still want to make a contribution. My hair is somewhat gray, but I still can think and act. I can volunteer, I can work, I can assist. And there are many people who are elderly, who are just waiting for somebody from a community agency to come out and say, will you help? I understand that you used to be in the garbage business. We have a recycling business. Could you give us some of your expertise on how we might convert that to a business that works or a business that's inclusive? There are many people out there that would love to give you support and direction. They don't know the disability part, but they certainly know the employment part. They know the Department of Labor part. They know a lot of different parts. There are retired execs who know HR inside and out. Maybe they can help you. And we now have smart houses. I love those smart houses. Smart houses are going up all over the place. The first one was launched in Oregon. We've got them launched in the state of Washington. We've got them launched all over the place, where they're integrated with technology. We can say at a smart house to the refrigerator, what are the things that we've run out of, and can you create a grocery list? And the refrigerator does it. How amazing is that? Hey, refrigerator, are there things in here that are out of date? And so we need to look at how smart houses can move us along. In the book, The Seat of the Soul is a book I like. I think it's interesting. You don't have to read it. I'll just tell you the summary. Instead of using a club to kill somebody, a club can drive a stake into the ground to build a home. A spear that can take someone's life can also be used as a lever to ease life's burdens. A knife that could cut through somebody's flesh could also be used to cut cloth and make masks for COVID. The hand that might build a bomb is a brilliant person that instead could be encouraged to use their hand to build new schools or new programs for people with IDD. And the mind that coordinates the activity of violence perhaps can help us coordinate activities of cooperation. Next slide. We have all learned, according to President Clinton, we have long recognized, my slides I changed, so we have long recognized that people with disabilities are some of the nation's greatest untapped resources. We, the United States, believe that all people with disabilities must be fully integrated into the mainstream of society so they can live fulfilling and rewarding lives. Next slide. Innovation is as American as apple pie. Do you know that in the United States alone, there is a new product developed every 30 minutes? Yet, we have so much technology untouched. We're not using it. We have all of these engineering students creating things to get people to space, to help the elderly. We need to knock on their doors too. I just recently knocked on the door of Purdue and got some engineering students and said, here's the deal. I have this gentleman I'm working with, he has autism. He can't use his voice to speak, but he can communicate. He really can't do the iPad thing. It's just too much for him. What can you do for me? 6 weeks later, they had designed a washable vest that had 4 pockets. In each pocket, they put a communication device that was waterproof. I don't know how, it's like magic. They pre-programmed the 4 responses that this gentleman typically wanted to use when he was out and about in the community. So all he had to do was to slightly touch one of his pockets, and he had 4 pre-programmed responses so that he wasn't having to use this big communication device, but rather could just be dressed like a regular teenager and respond. We live in a global world, yet in many states, we still have not figured out how to convert sheltered workshops to models for building social capital that lead to volunteer and employment. We have computers that can drive cars, yet we as DD professionals sometimes are afraid to tear down our bricks and mortars to shift to outcomes of inclusion and participation. So what are some cultural guidelines for changing the way you handle change? Stop the history, do what works. Don't wait for somebody to tell you what to do. And this is what you're doing. You're taking initiative. You signed up to be part of this pilot. You signed up to be part of the National Leadership Network. You signed up to be a pilot to move your organization in a new direction, and you are taking that initiative. Don't play it safe. Take more risks. Okay? Don't do management by memo. Get out and talk to your people. Get out and talk to your staff. Get out and talk to your self-advocates. And don't try not to break things. Welcome destruction in a meaningful way in which the focus is outcomes and how do we get from here to there so that we have measurable, data-driven success. Well, and there was my timer. Next slide. I'm almost done. We'll go to the next slide.
You're doing fine. You're doing fine.
Okay. We need to rethink our internal policy. Who has the control? Self-advocates should have control. Not unreasonable control, but it's their life. It's their funding. It's their plan. Choice. How do we make sure that people have informed choice? How do we make sure that we solicit input in a way that's meaningful, that isn't a yes or no? Kathy, are you happy? I think she wants me to say yes. Yes, I'm happy. Instead, on a regular basis, how are you feeling these days? You're going to get a very different response. And then you have to couch that. Is that a COVID response? Oh, okay, so right now you're feeling scared and vulnerable. Last year this time, last summer, how were you feeling last summer? Oh, I was great. I started my new job. I got a new boyfriend, whatever that might be. Our internal policy of dignity for all. Dignity for our staff, dignity for the people that we serve, dignity for families. How do we make sure that we're treating people with dignity and respect? Rights, oh my, I could do a whole day on rights. As a field, we're not very good at making sure that people exercise their rights. In a national survey conducted by CQL, where they interviewed 864 people with IDD across the United States, only 47% of people interviewed said they were exercising their rights. It was even worse in the state of South Dakota, such that the DD director in South Dakota decided that he was going to fund a new training initiative for all agencies to better allow people with IDD receiving supports to exercise their rights. And so you can take a look at what South Dakota did. They've really come a long way in moving forward and exercising rights. Personal goals, as I said, the new community-based waiver regulations requires that everybody have at least one goal they care about. It's kind of sad that we've been providing services in the community for over 40 years and we're finally getting to the, oh gosh, maybe the person should have a goal they care about. And self-advocates as policymakers. If you're going to rewrite policy, if you're going to rewrite policies and procedures, please have some self-advocates on your team, have some direct care staff on that team to help you look at the wording, look at the concept to make sure that we're not restricting, but rather enhancing people's lives. Next slide, please. I loved to watch Off to See the Wizard and Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz. And what we have learned from the Wizard of Oz, I think really has a lot to say about what we need to learn about these two self-advocates that you see on the screen. We all need friends. We need to use waiver dollars to support people to make friends and keep friends. And if people move from one place to another place, we have to figure out a way that they can connect back to their friends, even though they've moved out of the workshop to a job in the community or out of this home to another home. Mutual respect. Dorothy, the wizard, the Tin Man, the lion, they knew each other's shortcomings and they knew each other's strengths, and they built on those strengths and had mutual respect for each other. Interdependence, don't tell me that people want to be independent. I don't want to be independent. I'm not independent, okay? I need other people to help me be more independent, but I'm interdependent on other people, okay? I am very interdependent on the lady who cleans my house, because I don't want to. I'd much rather work than clean my house. I'm interdependent at the lady at the dry cleaners who cleans my clothes, okay? I'm interdependent on my mother when I can't figure out how to substitute sour cream for yogurt, for example, in a recipe. So we're all interdependent, and that's what we have to help people with IDD to do, how to become interdependent in such a way that you're not just taking, but that you're giving and taking together. Courage. Courage is staff to do the right thing and to follow the mission. Courage is self-advocates to find your voice and use your voice. Informed choices, finding tools that help people with IDD and their families to make informed choices, not based on history, but based on best practice, and the freedom to go home, wherever that home might be. Next slide. Albert Schweitzer once said, "Sometimes our light goes out, but it is blown again into a flame by an encounter with somebody else, another person. Each of us owes the deepest thanks to those who have kindled this light. I thank each of you on these teams. You've given me new ideas, you've given me new ways of thinking about things, and hopefully this Zoom call will give us all at least one new idea of what we can try next." And with that, I say thank you.
Thank you so much, Kathy. That was a wonderful presentation. We really appreciate it. And also for the very insightful feedback that you gave to each of the agencies. We really appreciate all of that. I'm sure they do too. To the agencies, you gave some really great presentations, and I just want to say you really stepped up in a really difficult time to implement your challenge projects. So I commend you for that. And I think your efforts are very meritorious, and they're inspirational, and I think they'll inspire others to make change across the state of Texas. I also want to say thank you to the National Leadership Consortium for the training they provided, and they've agreed to provide training for our second year cohort that we are going to be moving forward with. It'll be a little bit different this next year. It's going to be more of an online format for the training for this second group, but they will probably be in contact with those of you from the year one cohort as well, just to get some ideas. We're still going to include you in some ways. We may be in contact there. Also, I want to thank TCDD and especially Richard Rendon for all the assistance that he's given to us. He's been great, always very responsive, and provided a lot of guidance to us. So also to all those in attendance today, I hope this was helpful. You found something useful, and we appreciate your attendance. And also, don't forget to fill out the evaluation forms. I have to say that. And Nora, is there any other housekeeping that we need to do?
Yes, I think everyone should unmute and clap their hands and say Yahoo for their job well done. So unmute everyone. We may lose people, but do it and say, woo! Yeah. That's all I have to say.
Okay, well, Devendra, did you have anything you wanted to add, or is there anything else that we need to cover before we close out?
I was going to ask if anybody has questions to Kathy because she's an expert in so many things. So I was just
Good idea.
give a couple of minutes to any audience to ask questions.
No questions.
Doesn't seem to, let's see, make sure there's none in the chat. Nope, I don't see any questions. If no one has any questions, I think we're finished for the day.
I have a question.
Oh, here comes a question.
I wondered if we shouldn't keep the party here open for 5 minutes so people can do their surveys in case they have any questions about the surveys.
Sure, sounds good.
So can everybody get after their surveys?
So yes, please complete the surveys. If you have any questions, let us know. Once you complete your surveys, have a great day.
Thank you.
I'd also like to quickly thank Liz and Alicia, our interpreters, who've been doing an excellent job, and they've been pinging me in the chat so I can make sure to spotlight their video for the video on demand, which we will make available later on the College of Education website. So be sure to check your emails and our social media. We will be putting the link to that once it's available.
And thank you, Neil.